Hey everybody, welcome into the Shelby County High School Football Show. It has been a while since you've heard from me on this video. I've been out, I got married, went on my honeymoon for a week in Hawaii, but now I'm back here in Shelby County. And it's a little bit different scenery than I became accustomed to over that week, but it's good to be back and in the thick of high school football with 3 weeks remaining. That's crazy to think about that we've already flown through the 2018 football season, but it's a big couple weeks. We've only got 2 weeks of region play left, which means playoff spots are on the line, and it starts this Friday with several big matchups and even games with no playoff implications. Teams already out of the playoffs. We've got one big county matchup between Spain Park and Oak Mountain that we'll talk about as well, but 2 games of the week again this Friday night. That's the second time this season we've done that, and for very good reason. One of the teams is going to be the Briarwood Christian Lions. That's where we're broadcasting from this week at Briarwood Christian School right now. And the game won't take place here, but they will be traveling to take on another top 10 team in Ramsey. Briarwood was number 1 a couple weeks ago. It slid down to number 3 after a loss to a good 6A Hartselle team that's undefeated in 6A and ranks number 5. So probably not deserving of a drop down to number 3, but they'll have a chance to prove themselves this Friday night when they take on Ramsey, and that game's going to be for a region championship. So we'll touch on that one, and we also have the Thompson Warriors. The reason we're broadcasting at Briarwood is because next week I can already tell you that Thompson Hewitt Trussville at the new Warrior Stadium is going to be our game of the week, but they also have a game of the week this week as well. Our second game of the week, they'll be taking on the Mountain Brook Spartans in what has become a huge matchup, not only for region implications, playoff implications, but just for straight pride to end the season. This is a game, Mountain Brook sitting undefeated right now, and has had an extremely good and shocking season. Not many people expected Mountain Brook to be the lone undefeated team in Class 7A Region 3 at this point in the season, but that they are. Thompson still, on the other hand, ranked higher than them, something I'm sure Mountain Brook will use to their advantage in that matchup. But this is a game, the winner has a chance to win the region championship this year. The loser, on the other hand, has a chance to finish 3rd, 4th in the region standings, and that's huge when it comes to the playoff seeding. But that's a real possibility if Thompson loses this game with Hewitt Trussville on the horizon the following week. This is a big football game for the Thompson Warriors when it comes to their playoff implications and where they're going to be seated moving into that first round of the playoffs in a few weeks. So we've got that game. We've got several other big games we're going to talk about, a lot of other things to touch on when it comes to playoff implications in other classifications and in other regions. And some teams just looking to gain some momentum. But Calera and Shelby County both have big games as well when it comes to making the playoffs this season. So we're going to touch on everything, several games to talk about. And at the end, we hadn't been able to do it in a couple of weeks. We've got our SCR Stars of the week, and they are loaded. We've got, if you like offense, we've got a lot of it to talk about from last week's games. A lot of people put up some big numbers, and we're going to touch on all of those in our SCR Stars of the Week segment at the end of the show. But right now we're going to dive in, and we're going to talk about our first game of the week, which is going to be Thompson traveling to take on the Mountain Brook Spartans. This game between the Warriors and the Spartans became much bigger last week after everything unfolded. Mountain Brook upsets number 2 Hewitt Trussville by a final score of 20-17. Thompson barely hangs on to beat Vestavia Hills by a final score of 21-20. So both close games, but Mountain Brook gives you much more momentum moving into this week. It's a Spartans team that many people didn't expect to be very good, to struggle to make the playoffs, and if they were going to make the playoffs, battle for the number 4 seed in this region. But they've come out and they are undefeated now through 7 weeks of the season, playing lights-out football going into this matchup, and it's been unbelievable to see their play on the field so far this season. And it's been really because of the defensive side of the ball, giving up just 8.4 points per game, and that defense shut down a Hewitt Trussville offense that has been just throwing the ball all over teams this year. Put up 50 points on Hoover, beat them by 20 points, and Mountain Brook just shut them down, held them to less than 20 points at 17. And when you do that to that kind of offense, that's an impressive feat, and it makes a statement. It shows that this defense is for real, and it's not a fluke. And that's been what's carried this team throughout the season. The offense has struggled at times, only scoring 28.6 points per game, which is something Thompson's going to need to take advantage of. But the Warriors coming off that slim 21-20 win, they trailed late in that game 20-14, but were able to score a touchdown. Kyle Smoke backs into the end zone there at the end, puts them up 21-20. A Jalen Bustamante interception while Vestavia Hills was driving to take the lead again really sealed the game. Vestavia had another chance, but Thompson stood tall on the last defensive stand. So It's not the way they wanted it to go, but it can benefit Thompson this week. The reason I think that they can benefit from that slim game and from Mountain Brook's win, the Spartans coming off that huge upset has gained a lot of attention. It's been talked about a lot, and people have their eyes on Mountain Brook to see whether they are legit or a team that still isn't quite there. I mean, you can't really say that they're not quite there when they're sitting at 7-0 on the season, but it's a team not many people believed in coming into the season. And so there still may be some questions that people want answers to in this game. I think that Thompson's got a strong shot at using last week's close game to where they almost lost to their advantage, because if they would have lost that game, it would have been huge. It would have been a big upset. Now they have the chance to get in the weight room, get in the film room, get to practice this week and say, we don't want to put up another performance like that. We are a better football team than that, and we want to prove that we are better than Mountain Brook. That being said, Thompson still sits at number 2, so Mountain Brook will be looking for an upset of the number 2 team for the second straight week in a row. While Thompson sitting there with one loss, Mountain Brook sitting at number 5 undefeated. So the Spartans can also use that to their advantage in this game as well. But overall, I think that I just really have a good feeling that everything kind of aligns in Thompson's favor this week, simply because of what happened and what unfolded last week. I just think that there's a lot of distraction that can be had after such a big upset over a number 2 team. And while you're undefeated and you've proven yourself throughout the season, this is where their gauntlet really started. Hewitt, Trustville, Thompson, and Hoover, their last 3 region games. So if they win this week, I'm going to become a big-time believer in this Spartans team. I would almost move them up to number 1 in the state. You've got Central Phoenix City and Auburn, who are undefeated as well. But this Class 7A Region 3 is the toughest high school football region in the state of Alabama, and really one of the toughest in the Southeast altogether. So Mountain Brook sitting undefeated. If they win this game, I think they're the number 1 team in the state. Right now, I still need to be sold on them, because putting it together for back-to-back weeks is a very different story than just pulling off one upset. But if they win this week, then they are a legit team that can win a state championship. But still need to see it, and I have a lot of belief in Thompson to take advantage of last week's close win, to use that to fuel them this week to really go out and play angry and show that they are a lot better than that team that we saw a week ago. So right now, I think Thompson's got the advantages on the offensive side of the ball. I do think both defenses are going to play well early, and it's going to be a defensive battle, kind of like we saw in the quarterfinals of the playoffs last year, where Mountain Brook almost pulled off the upset there. I expect a very similar game, at least until the half, maybe even through the third quarter, but I do think Thompson's going to make a play or two to pull off the win in this game. It should be a close one, though, and one that you will not want to miss out there at Mountain Brook High School as these 2 top 5 opponents take on each other. This is the game I'm going to be at on Friday night, and it really may be the biggest game of the week, despite the 2 top 5 teams that we have taking on each other in 7A with Thompson and Mountain Brook. This is a game that is what football is about. You've got 2 hard-nosed defensive-style football teams battling for a region championship. That's right, Briarwood and Ramsey will be competing for the region title this Friday night when they take the field against each other out at Lawson Field. It won't be out here where I'm broadcasting from right now, which is at Briarwood. It will be at Lawson Field, which is over off of the interstate near the old Century Plaza and Chevrolet dealership up there. But it's going to be a monumental matchup that Briarwood's looking for their 3rd region championship in a row, and this is going to be their first real test when it comes to Class 5A. Now, they did lose a couple weeks ago to 6A number 5 Hartselle, who is undefeated to this point in the season, and Briarwood tied 7-7 at the end of regulation, goes on to lose that one 14-7 in overtime, but that just shows how good of a football team this is, because the jump from 5A to 6A it's incredible. It takes a lot of talent and a lot of depth to be able to compete with a team that's at the 6A level. It's one of the biggest jumps of any of the classifications that we have in the state of Alabama. So showed what Briarwood's capable of doing this season, and now they get another tough test. This is a Ramsey team inside the top 10 that's had an unbelievable season, and guess what? They were in 6A the last 2 years. 2 years ago, win the 6A state championship. That's how good they were. And then last year, they make it to the semifinals before losing to Pinson Valley in the second round of the playoffs. I'm sorry, they lost to Pinson Valley last year, and that was the eventual state champion of 2017. So what Ramsey's been able to do the last couple years at the 6A level shows that they can handle the 5A level, and now they get into this region where you're going to kind of get a little rivalry with Briarwood who was obviously in the 5A state championship last year before losing to St. Paul's, who has now jumped up to 6A. So a lot of jumping back and forth there, but it's just going to be an unbelievable matchup to see how Briarwood handles this Ramsey team. Coach Fred Yancey told me at the beginning of the season this was the one game on the schedule that really worried him. Now, he had some difficult opponents that could show up and be really good on any given week, but Ramsey was the team that really worried him, knowing what they had done the last 2 years. So that's what makes this matchup so interesting, and it's because both teams are giving up less than 10 points per game on the defensive side of the ball. Ramsey giving up just 8 points per game, and Briarwood 6.4 points per game. And if you take out that overtime and just ended at regulation, Briarwood's only giving up 5.4 points per game in regulation this year. So best defense I've ever seen at the high school level. And that's saying even with last year's Briarwood defense, they gave up less than 10 points per game. So it's just unbelievable to see what Briarwood is able to do year in and year out on the defensive side of the ball. But that goes to show you should expect a defensive battle in this game. Both teams struggling on offense. Ramsey, both teams scoring right around 27 points per game. One team a couple more, one team a couple less, but right around 27 points per game. And that's what's going to be key in this contest. You got two tough defenses. Any offensive play can be the difference in this contest between these two teams. One team could make one play that is the difference. I mean, heck, you could have a final score of 10-7, 7-6, something like that, and I would not be shocked at all. So Briarwood's going to have to take advantage of their offensive playmakers. Jonah Carroll has stepped into the quarterback role and given this team a new dynamic. J.R. Train-Reno can slide out to receiver and do some different things as an athlete. And then you've got running back Luke Pruitt, who's finally back and healthy after missing a few games with an injury. Looked really good last week in their win. So this is a Briarwood team that's got those offensive weapons finally all on the same page, clicking and on the field together. That really could be the difference in this game. Ramsey's a big, physical, talented team on both sides of the ball, but specifically on defense. So Briarwood's offense is going to have to be up to the test, because I know Briarwood's defense is going to be up to the test of stopping Ramsey. So it just comes down to those playmakers on the offensive side of the ball and having the best offensive line that this Briarwood team may have ever had, and that's coming from the head coach himself. Is something that can give them some confidence and faith to move the ball down the field against a very good Ramsey team this Friday night. The Rams are coming off a tough 12-7 win against Winona, a team that Briarwood beat big time earlier this season and has blown out the last couple of times those teams have met. So Briarwood, on the other hand, coming off a dominant win, 41-7 against Parker, a game that wasn't ever close. Briarwood just dominated from start to finish in that one, and even got some other players some playing time. So that gives Briarwood, I feel like, a little bit more confidence moving into this game, while Ramsey is coming off a hard-nosed win that they had to struggle to dig out against Winona last week by a final of 12-7. So it'll be interesting to see if that plays a factor, if we really did see the transition of Briarwood on the offensive side of the ball over the last couple of weeks, because they have scored a lot of points, 42 and 41 in their last two games. So if Briarwood's offense is playing that well, paired with that defense, then that's going to make it for, I think, a win for Briarwood, and maybe even a long night for Ramsey. But this Ramsey defense is so good, I think it should be a closely contested game either way. But with the region championship on the line, Briarwood looking for their third in a row, it's going to be a game to watch, and a game that any football fan, even if you have no affiliation to the two schools, would want to see. So if you can make it out, catch Briarwood and Ramsey. So now we'll go down classification by classification, break down the rest of the games that we have taking place this Friday night, from AHSA all the way down to AISA and ACSC level contests. And we're going to go a little bit quicker because I've already spent 15 minutes doing the intro in the first two games of the week because they are such big contests. But we're going to start in 7A with the Spain Park Oak Mountain game. And this is a game that I mentioned at the opening of the show, that while these teams both sit at 1-6 on the season, they started 1-0 and have lost 6 games in a row. One of them's finally going to stop that losing skid, and they know it, and it's a feeling that you want. You don't want to lose this one, go to 7 losses in a row, and not know if you're going to finish the season with another win. You want to be the team that comes out on top and wins this game and stops that losing skid. And the reason I say that is because the losing streak is on their minds, and they know they can come into this game and pick up a win. That's huge. That's something that is talked about. That is something that these teams both want to pull off on Friday night, making this a very entertaining and good football game to want to be at. Spain Park, Oak Mountain, it's a rivalry. They're separated by less than 3 miles. It's always a lot of fun to watch these two teams compete in any sport, but especially on the gridiron. So if you're a Spain Park fan, if you're an Oak Mountain fan, make sure you get out there, watch this game on Friday night at Hermont Stadium. Going to be a lot of fun to watch these two teams compete. That being said, both teams are struggling right now, and they have to do some things to fix that. Last year Oak Mountain lost 5 games in a row, came in and dominated Spain Park by a final score of 29-3 to stop that losing skid. That's what one of these teams are going to be looking to do on Friday night. But Oak Mountain showed they could do it last year, and they upset Spain Park. Spain Park went on to make the playoffs last year, but lost. That was their biggest downfall of the season last year, that 29-3 loss to Oak Mountain, something they haven't forgotten, I'm sure, and something they're using as bulletin board material and fuel throughout the week to make sure they show up and give their best effort in this game. So both teams struggling over the last couple weeks, especially on the offensive side of the ball. The Jags have yet to score more than 24 points this season and have scored 14 or less in 5 of 7 games. So their offense this year just hasn't been there. Their defense started the season really good, has been good throughout, especially in the first half, but the offense has been so bad that it's really left the defense in a bad spot and on the field a lot. And in the second half, they just can't keep up. The depth and the players, they get exhausted being on the field so much. But the last 4 in a row is the real key for Spain Park's offense. They've scored 14 or less in all 4 of those games, and that's just a tough pill to swallow. And they've tried to make some transitions, some changes with quarterback, other things. We'll see how it unfolds this Friday night, but Spain Park's going to have to find some momentum on the offensive side of the ball, because Oak Mountain, while they have struggled on the offensive side of the ball the last 2 weeks, especially scoring just 7 combined points, it's a team that showed some flashes of good offense earlier in the season because of freshman quarterback Evan Smith, who's been outstanding, and Luke Purser, the running back. They have a lot of opportunity and things to expect on the offensive side of the ball, even though they have struggled. And I expect that to possibly be the difference maker. You know, both teams have decent defenses. Spain Park may have a little bit of edge on the defensive side of the ball. Oak Mountain has a little bit of an edge on the offensive side of the ball. So something's got to give. We'll see which one does give on Friday night when the two teams meet at Hermont Park. Now we'll jump down into the 6A classification. We've got a lot of big matchups in 6A this week, a couple of which with playoff implications on the line, and those are going to be the first 2 games we talk about. But it's going to start with Calera and Benjamin Russell. Now this is just a big game for the Calera Eagles, and hopefully their fans realize it and will show up and represent and be there for the team this Friday night. But 1-6 on the season, this Calera team has a shot to make the playoffs on Friday night. They beat Benjamin Russell. They claim the 4th spot in that region. Both teams sitting at 1-3 in region play. That being said, Benjamin Russell has been the better team overall when it comes to the overall record. They sit at 4-4, while Calera sits at 1-6 on the season. So you may think that gives Benjamin Russell an advantage, and they're clearly the better team, but I think you'd be wrong. I think Calera has more talent across the board. They're finally starting to show some momentum. And I think that their schedule's been a lot more difficult, and that can really play into this game. Calera's healthy. They've got Cornelius Brown back at quarterback. That's a big deal. They have plenty of offensive weapons for him to throw to. And so it's just about, this team really seems like the first half of the year was a struggle. There's no doubt about it, but they seem like they're starting to buy in now, and it's not too little too late. They would have a tough matchup in the first round of the playoffs should they make it, but this could make the whole season go away. This could be a big deal, a big win for Calera if they're able to pull it off. And with the team finally gaining that momentum, winning a couple weeks ago for their first win of the season, last week against Opelika, which is a superior team, one of the best in the 6A classification, and they hung with them. They were in a tight game at the half, 10-7, had a chance to take the lead at the half when they threw an interception. That really seemed to be the difference maker, because Opelika came out and just played lights out in the second half. But that being said, Calera showed they can compete with one of the better teams in the 6A classification, and I think they are still a team that can win some games and upset people that they're not expected to beat, and that can happen this Friday night. Benjamin Russell probably has the confidence, probably thinks they're the team that's going to make the playoffs. But that being said, I would not be surprised at all if Clear were able to pull off the upset in this game. So get out, support the Clear Eagles this Friday night. They've got a strong chance to make a statement win against Benjamin Russell. After starting the season 0-4, Richie Busby has finally gotten his Halina Huskies team to buy in. They were expected to have a tough season, a rebuilding year, his first year as the head coach, and now they've won 3 games in a row after a 16-0 shutout of Carver. A Carver team that people expected to beat Halina, most likely, but I didn't expect it. I thought Halina could go in there. They'd been playing well. Their defense is stepping up, and they held Carver to 37 combined total yards on the offensive side of the ball. So to see the defense playing with that much aggression and that much confidence at this point in the season, they could have easily rolled over and ended things at 0-4 after that start. Now they have a chance to make a playoff spot. They're sitting at 2-2 in region play. They've started to play well. They've won 3 in a row, sit at 3-4 overall. So this is a team that has really just turned things around, and it has been impressive to watch. And I give all credit to the players and to their head coach who got them to buy in. I mean, that's just an unbelievable job by Busby and by the players to step up and not give up on the season when they could have easily done so. Now they have a matchup this week. It's going to be a tough one. They take on undefeated Jackson Olin, who's coming off a win against Pelham in a game they probably should have lost. Pelham had a chance to take the lead in the final 5 minutes. They were sitting in third and goal from the 4-yard line and throw a pick six, and that sealed the game. Jackson Olin went on to win 40-28. But this Halina team, their defense is playing outstanding right now. And I think that could be a difference maker. I think that could keep them in this game for a lot longer than people may expect. I do think Jackson Olin is the better team, and I do think Jackson Olin's probably going to get out of here with the win. But either way, Halina's got a chance, and if they do win this game, they've got a real good chance at making the playoffs. Even if they lose, they still have a shot at making the playoffs. So there's still plenty of confidence, plenty of stuff for Halina to feel good about, and especially with the way they're playing football right now. They look like a completely different team, and you can tell from the one that started the season. Now, Jackson Olin is a very big football team, very physical, and they may have an advantage in several different categories, but heart and determination really does play a factor in the game of football, and I think that's going to help Halina keep this game close for a long time, and they'll have a chance if their offense is able to click and find some plays, because Jackson Olin's offense, to be honest with you, hasn't been outstanding this year. The 40 points they scored against Pelham was the first time they had scored 40, and they've only had a couple games in the 30s. The rest of the games have been 30 or less, and they're only averaging 28.9 points per game. So going up against a very good Halina defense, that could be a key for the Huskies in this game. They could keep it close simply because their defense compared to a just average Jackson Olin offense. Now, the Mustangs do have one good player who made himself known last week and was running all over the field. Halina's going to have to step up and stop him. He's a speedy little guy that can do several different things, and actually had a 50-yard fake punt. He's their punter as well. Had a 50-yard fake punt for a touchdown untouched. So he's a guy they'll have to hone in on and make sure he doesn't beat them on Friday night. But either way, I think Halina's defense is going to keep them in this game. I do think that Halina will have a chance, especially at halftime. I do think this is going to be a close game, so we'll see how it unfolds in the second half. But it should be a fun one to see if the Huskies can pick up win number 4 in a row. This is a matchup between Chelsea and Minor that we really don't know what to expect between these two teams. The Chelsea Hornets sitting at 0-7 on the season, coming off a tough 34-7 loss to Homewood last Friday, but it's a Homewood team that's extremely good and was expected to go in there and take care of business. Chelsea, on the other hand, has been so close to a breakthrough this entire season. You get the feeling this might be the week against Minor that they can get it done. And, you know, Chelsea's had 3 games that they've lost by 7 points or less. Another game they've lost by 13 points. So like I said, they've been on the cusp of that breakthrough all season, and we'll see if they can do it this Friday night against a Minor team that really has struggled this season. They're both below average teams so far this season. Minor is coming off of their probably their best performance of the season in a closely contested 31-28 loss against Homewood. Then they had the bye week, but really it's a team that has struggled up to that point throughout the season, sitting at 2-5 on the year so far. And both teams' struggle really comes down to the offensive side of the ball. Minor's averaging 16.4 points per game, while Chelsea's averaging just 15.6 points per game. So both offenses have struggled this year, and that's going to be key to watch. That's something that can give Chelsea some momentum, some positivity heading into this game, because you know it's going to be a low-scoring defensive battle, and you have a solid defense, so you have to lean on your offense to make a play or two to really change the tune of this game and pick up a win. I do think they're going to be in this game. I think they have a chance. I'm not sure if they're going to pull off the upset or pull off the win, but they do have a chance. It's a minor team that's very average, a team that Chelsea could beat if they played their best game. So it's one you probably want to get to and see if you're a Chelsea fan. I wouldn't miss it. This could be a chance at a win, and they definitely deserve your support. They've battled all year, and there's a few games that they could have easily won. They could have 3 or 4 wins on the season to this point. So it's a team that hasn't given up, and I expect them to show a valiant effort against the Tigers. Inconsistency has been the problem for Pelham so far to this point in the season, and it started, they had a 2-0 start to the season, looked unstoppable on both sides of the ball, and then they bounce back. They lose their next 2 in a row, really to teams they probably should have beaten. They should have been 4-0 on the season, which would have been huge because they won their next 3 after those 2 losses, and that could have put them in a very good spot, 7-0 overall this season. But instead, they win those 3 games. Then they lose again last week to Jackson Olin, a game that they really should have won. They had their chances in that game, and they trailed by 6 points late. They had a 1st and goal from inside the 10-yard line, eventually faced 3rd and goal from the 4-yard line, throw a pick 6, and that really ends the game. They fall 40-28, and it was a game where they were battling from behind. Mistakes cost them from the start, and if they hadn't had those mistakes on the offensive side of the ball, the defense was playing so good, they would have easily won that game. So it's just been the inconsistency on offense, the mistakes throughout the season. That's really been Pelham's kryptonite and downfall to this point in the 2018 football season. And now they've got 2 games left. They've got this non-region contest this week against Northridge, and then next week a very big football game against the Halina Huskies that will determine a playoff spot for the Panthers. So Pelham still has a chance to pick up the 3 seed in the region, depending on how Minor finishes off the year. But next week against Halina, either way, they have to win that game or they will miss the playoffs. So this is a week for them to gain some momentum again, start up another streak possibly against a Northridge team that's 2-5 and Pelham's better than. It's just straightforward. They're better than this Northridge team, so they don't need to hang their heads on last week's difficult loss. They need to make sure they're up for this game, because losing this game makes you really lose all momentum going into a must-win game next week. So I expect Pelham to take care of business. They have such a solid defense. If their offense shows consistency, we've seen it. When the defense and the offense play well, this, I think, could be the best team, not only in this region, but one of the best teams in the state. So it's a big game for them to kind of gain that momentum and show that they can do it on both sides of the ball again, moving into that must-win game against Halina next week. Like the Calera Eagles, the Shelby County Wildcats are in a must-win situation this Friday night. They have to pick up a victory against Central Tuscaloosa if they want to make the playoffs this season, and that would just set up a must-win game the following week against Jemison, which would finally clinch that playoff spot. But I think they're better than Jemison, so they really need to take care of business this Friday night, and I think that really gives them a strong chance in that final week of region play to make the postseason. So it's going to be interesting to watch unfold when these two teams take to the field, because while Shelby County started the season 0-4, they've really bounced back. They've won 2 of their last 3 and have looked solid on the offensive side of the ball, which is what their struggle was to start the season. It's a Shelby County team that preached buy-in the offseason, made some changes, and I think you're finally starting to see those changes. And while they're coming off a tough 40-12 loss a couple weeks ago to a very good Demopolis team, they've also had a bye week to prepare for this game, and I think that's going to help them tremendously in this contest. So we'll see how it unfolds, but I do think this is a big opportunity for Shelby County to really show that they've turned the season around and to keep their playoff hopes alive. It's a big game all around for the entire community, and I know they want this win bad. against Central Tuscaloosa. They have a very good shot to pull it off. Both teams are just struggling on offense so far this season, scoring the Central Tuscaloosa scoring 20 points per game, Shelby County scoring 17.1 points per game, but Shelby County has the better defense, and when you have the better defense against a struggling offense, you're going to keep them off the scoreboard. So all your offense has to do is make 1 or 2 plays to win this game. They're going to have their chances. They need to have some confidence and have some fun with it. Go out and make some plays, and I think Shelby County can come out on top and keep their playoff hopes alive. I'm just going to start this segment off by saying Montevallo should win this football game. They are the better team. I've looked over the numbers. I've looked over the stats. Montevallo is the better team between these two football teams. And, you look at it and you look at the records. They're both 3-1 in region play, which can make it look like it's going to be a closely contested game. But I just have a good feeling about Montevallo right now. When you look at the numbers on paper, their offense has just been unbelievable this season, and their only loss has come to American Christian, a ranked undefeated team in the 4A classification who's going to win this region, and it's an American Christian team that's given up just 19 points on the season outside of their game against Montevallo, including 4 shutouts in 5 games of 7 points or less. Montevallo, however, went in there and put up 54 points on that defense. That shows how good Montevallo's offense is when you've got guys like Deion Gilliland, Malik and Bennett there at quarterback, J.J. Evans, who's getting Division I offers and one of the top receivers in the state. I mean, this offense is loaded, and they are better than Sipsey Valley on both sides of the ball, and I think they should take care of business with a fairly easy win, to be honest with you. And it is a big game, like I said, because they are both sitting at 3-1 in region play, but Sipsey Valley's 4-3 overall, and I just think Montevallo sitting at 6-1 has looked better continuously and consistently throughout the season, averaging 43.4 points per game, while Sipsey Valley scoring just 18.3. I mean, that's the main number right there, is that Montevallo's offense is playing so well, and Sipsey Valley struggling to score. I don't see a way that Sipsey Valley stays in this game and scores enough to keep up with Montevallo's potent offense, because both defenses are averaging about the same. So the offensive side of the ball looks to be the difference maker. I think Montevallo is going to pick up a big win, move to 4-1 in region play, which is huge because that would give them the shot at a top 2 seed heading into the playoffs and a home field game to start the 2018 postseason, rather than falling into that 3-4 seed range, which would be huge for this football team. I had high expectations for the Vincent Yellow Jackets coming into the 2018 football season, and head coach Lucas Weatherford going into his first season kept telling me to calm down, that they weren't as good as I thought they would be. And it showed. Early in the season, they struggled. They got off to the 0-4 start, didn't go the way that they wanted it to, but now they look like the team I expected them to look like. They've won their last 3 in a row. The defense has gone from giving up 192 points in those first 4 games to a combined 22 points in their last 3 games. That's a drastic change on that side of the football, and it's because the offense is starting to score, have some drives, and keep the defense off the field. The schedule's gotten a little bit easier. I mean, you have to admit that. But at the same time, the team has not quit. They haven't given up, and they have belief moving forward in the season. The offense also struggled early in the season, scoring just 46 points through the first 4 games, and now they've scored 113 in the last 3 games. And that's just an unbelievable, drastic change on both sides of the ball that Vincent's made, that the players have bought into, that Weatherford's adjusted to. And it's a statement to not only the players, but Weatherford in his first year to be able to make those kind of adjustments. So kudos to the players, to the coaching staff. They've done what they've needed to do to turn the season around, and now they have a tough matchup. They'll be taking on a very good Reeltown football team that's in the top 10, sitting at 7-1 overall this season. But a loss in this game won't take away from what they've been able to do to bounce back to this point in the years. The Vincent Yellow Jackets coming off a 27-8 victory against Horseshoe Bend. Reeltown coming off a 31-12 victory against Central Coosa. And the difference in this game, Reeltown's defense is giving up just 13.4 points per game. I think that's just going to be too good of a defensive unit for Vincent. While their offense has improved and their defense has improved, I think that could be the difference in this contest. I do think with the improvement of Vincent's offense and defense that they can keep this game a little bit closer, but this is a very good Reeltown football team that's going to take Vincent's best effort if they want to pull off the upset. Now that we've done all of our AHSAA games, we're going to jump in. We're going to talk a little bit about the AISA and ACSC, and we'll start with Coosa Valley. They're taking on Evangel Montgomery this Friday night, and it's for a playoff spot. If Coosa Valley wins this game, they do make the playoffs this year in head coach Jamie Scruggs' first season at the helm, which would be huge. It's a team that struggled early offensively, but now they're coming off a 32-19 win against Springwood, in which Caleb Allen went berserk. He had 300-plus yards rushing and also 4 touchdowns in that win. If he does that again this week, this won't even be a close game in my opinion. I think Coosa Valley is the better team than Evangel. And I do think they're going to go on to win this game. Whether they actually do is yet to be determined, but I do think they make the playoffs this year with a win against Evangel on Friday. Our other AISA game, we've got 2 more. Cornerstone will be taking on Meadowview this Friday night, and like Coosa Valley, Cornerstone is the better team in this game. While Cornerstone has struggled lately, they started the season 1-0, lost 7 in a row, now sit at 1-7 overall. This Meadowview team has yet to score more than 8 points in a game this season, and has scored just a total of 32 points overall on the year. And I think that's going to be a huge thing and a huge difference in this contest. Cornerstone should run away and win this one pretty easily. Our last AISA game is going to be Kingwood at Bessemer Academy, and Kingwood started the season 5-1. Looked like one of the best teams in the AISA, and then that gauntlet hit where they had a tough schedule the rest of the way. This week it's a Bessemer Academy team, sits in the top 10, and a team that could win a state championship at this level of the AISA. So it's going to be a tough week for Kingwood. And Bessemer Academy's won 4 games in a row and has given up just 34 combined points in those 4 games, including 14 combined in the last 3 games. So that really says all you need to know. Bessemer Academy's clicking, especially on the defensive side of the ball, but they put up a ton of points too. It's just going to be tough for Kingwood to be able to keep up. Our only ACSC game that we have going on is going to be the Evangel Lightning this Friday night. They're going to be taking on Lyman Ward. It's a road game for the Lightning, who have now won 3 games in a row, including head coach Tim Smith's 100 victory as a head coach. Want to give him a shout-out. That's obviously a big deal there for Tim Smith and everything he's done, both at Cornerstone and at Evangel. So big-time win for him a few weeks ago. And they're now coming off a 52-22 win against Freedom Academy last week. And the defense has just been playing outstanding the last 3 weeks in that 3-game win streak. We're going to talk a little bit more about some of their players as well as Coosa Valley players in our SCR Stars of the Week segment coming up here in just a second. But this is another matchup that Evangel should be able to handle with ease as they head into the state championship game of the ACSC the week after against Ezekiel. So we'll see how it unfolds, but some big matchups there across the AISA and ACSC as we close out the 2018 football season. So after some great performances last Friday night, it's time to name our SCR Stars of the Week, all the best performers from an action-packed week of high school football. And it's a long list. It's probably one of the longest lists I've done. I don't feel bad about it because I missed a couple weeks and want to try to get as many people some recognition as I possibly can. But we've got a few different classifications we're going to run down, and I'm going to start at the top in 7A with the Thompson Warriors and start on the defensive side of the ball with Jalen Bustamante. He had the game-saving interception there late in the fourth quarter. Thompson was down 20-14, came back, took the 21-20 lead, and Vestavia got the ball back and was driving, but Bustamante steps in front, intercepts the ball, and really saves the game for the Warriors. Vestavia got the ball back again, but was unable to go on a game-winning drive, so that really was the play that determined the outcome and saved the game for the Thompson Warriors last Friday night. Also on the offensive side of the ball, you can't ignore these 2 guys, Michael Petway and Talia Tungavaloa. Petway, 134 receiving yards on just 6 receptions in that game. He continues to be one of the best receivers in the county, and it's just impressive to see what he does on a week-by-week basis, going over 100 yards in almost every game so far this season. Talia, earlier today, I actually got to see him honored with his All-American game bowl jersey that he'll be playing in on Saturday, January the 5th. So a big accomplishment for him. And that story's got some good stats, some insight from his parents, coaching staff, all that kind of stuff. So if you haven't read it yet, go give it a read. It's a great story on what all he's done since he's moved here from Hawaii and what he's done over his entire 4-year high school football career in both states, Hawaii and Alabama. So very interesting, and congrats to him. But last week, 322 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Rebels in a run-of-the-mill game for him. He just does that almost automatic every week. So an important and big game for Talia. And they're going to have to do it, the defense and the offense, this Friday night against Mountain Brook if the Warriors want to pick up a big win against a top 5 opponent. So we'll see how they handle really probably the best defense they've played in the last 2 years since Talia got there. So this should be a lot of fun to see that game unfold. Speaking of defense, we'll move down to 6A, talk about the Halina Huskies. Their 3-game win streak has been built on defense, and last week gave up just 37 combined yards in that big win to continue that win streak. And now they'll look to do it again this Friday night. It's going to be a little bit tougher of a test, but to give up 37 combined yards against any offense is obviously a really good job and an unbelievable storyline that needed to be talked about. So congrats to everybody on the Halina defense that led to that and made that outcome possible. They've been fighting hard and have had a really good stretch here despite the slow start to the season. Also in 6A, Pelham lost, but I want to mention Edward Gibson's name as well as the defense. Edward Gibson, a guy that I haven't been able to mention a lot this season, but last week, 3 receptions, just 3 receptions. So if he had been taken advantage of a little bit more, could have really added more to his total, but had 70 yards and 1 touchdown on those 3 receptions. So a great performance from him. He's one of the most talented athletes, not just in the county, but in the entire state. So it's been impressive to see kind of what he's been doing so far this season, and he's been a big part of Pelham's success on the offensive side of the ball. You also have the defense that played outstanding last week, got in some trouble at times, but it was really the offensive side of the ball that put the defense in some tough situations. The defense played outstanding in that game. They lose 40-28, so it's hard to explain how a defense could give up 40 points and lose a game, but still have an outstanding game. But Pelham's defense did so last week. It just from the start to finish, they were just put in tough situations by the offensive side of the ball and had some impressive things going on defensively that really kept them in that game and gave them a chance late. They were on the inside the 5-yard line, like I've mentioned several times, and had a chance to win that game before a pick six really sealed things up and ended that game for Pelham last Friday night. But then we move down to the 4A classification. I mentioned it several times, but the Montevallo Bulldogs and their offense have just been unbelievable so far this season. And they have 4 guys that I'm going to mention this week in our SCR Stars of the Week segment, starting with running back Dion Gilliland. Gilliland had 133 yards on 19 carries and also had a touchdown and 2 two-point conversions. So when you think about guys like Malik and Bennett at quarterback and J.J. Evans at wide receiver who's getting Division I offers, you can't forget about Dion Gilliland. He has had an incredible season at the running back position and deserves some recognition and really deserves more than he's gotten from not just me but everybody across the state as we move into the rest of the season and into the postseason awards later this year. But Bennett and Evans continue their successful play. Bennett, 478 yards of total offense, 433 of which came through the air passing the ball on 23 of 39 passing. So another impressive game for him, another 400-plus yard passing performance for Bennett in that win last week. Now they have a big matchup against Sipsey Valley where he's really going to have to show up and give one of his best efforts of the season. But J.J. Evans, another strong game, 10 receptions for an unreal 269 receiving yards, which is good at any level of football, any classification of football, any region of football. I mean, it's just an unbelievable stat line for J.J. Evans as he continues to do these kind of things and getting D1 offers for really good reasons. But 269 yards on 10 reception, that's just an unbelievable number to post, and I hope people do realize just how crazy and berserk it is to put up that kind of stat line. And he wasn't the only receiver to go off. While he had more than half of the receiving yards from quarterback Malik Bennett's arm, he also was joined by Jamarius Carter, who had 7 catches for 105 yards and 2 touchdowns. So if those guys are playing that well moving forward, this is going to be a very tough offense to stop as they move into postseason play. But I think they get a big win and continue their strong play on that side of the ball against Sipsey Valley this Friday night. Now moving down into the 2A classification, 2 guys at Vincent, both Chris Hardy and Robbie Albright, there at Vincent had impressive rushing games to lead to 300-plus combined yards on the ground for the Yellow Jackets. And we'll start with Chris Hardy, a guy we mentioned a lot last year. I think one of the talented running backs in the state, had 133 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground to lead Vincent. Albright added 185 yards, so got the advantage on the ground overall, but only added 1 touchdown. Still, though, those 2 stat lines together, that's an impressive duo that I expect to see carrying them moving forward to build off of the 3-game current win streak that they're on right now. I want to talk about a couple players in the AISA. We'll start with and the ACSC. We'll start with Evangel in the ACSC. And Tyler Henderson, an unbelievable performance at quarterback for him, 400-plus yards passing and 5 touchdowns, I believe. Just an unbelievable performance from him. And Coach Smith, head coach Tim Smith, said that was one of the best games he's ever seen him play, and probably the best he's ever seen him look throwing the football. So unbelievable performance for him. And he found Dawson Humphreys for 231 of those yards, including 4 touchdown passes to Humphreys. But he wasn't like Montevallo wasn't the only player to go over 100-plus yards. You also had Carter Hand, who had 119 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns on just 3 catches. So 2 great performances from 2 great receivers to build off of a quarterback's success, both at Evangel and at Montevallo. And then you also had Hunter Green, who's been one of the best linebackers in the county, regardless of classification or anything, at linebacker for Evangel, and he had 15 tackles last week, and that's just a normal week for him. He does that just about every week of the season. So the last player I want to talk about in the AISA is Caleb Allen. I've mentioned him on the show already, but at Coosa Valley last week led him to a big win with his 303 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns on just 25 carries. So an unbelievable performance from Caleb Allen, and he'll look to duplicate that this Friday night as they look to claim a playoff spot with a victory against Evangel Montgomery. They win that one, they're in the playoffs, and I think him having so much success is going to be a huge key for Coosa Valley moving forward into that game. So obviously going to be a big performance for Coosa Valley this Friday night as they look to claim that playoff spot. But that's going to do it for our SCR Stars of the Week segment. Obviously, a lot of guys on that list, and just trying to catch my breath after naming them all. But I expect to have a few more this Friday night in the biggest week of the season that we've had to this point. Playoff spots on the line. It's going to be an action-packed week of high school football as teams look to keep their playoff hopes alive, claim region championships in the case of Briarwood, or just must-win games that they have to win to make the playoffs altogether. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I expect to see people out. We're going to be I'll be out at the Briarwood Ramsey game out at Lawson Field, and we'll also have coverage all across the county. Make sure you're following us on Twitter at SCR Sports. That's where you can find updates from every game that we have going on across the county. It's a busy night. We've got a lot of games that we're going to be updating, so make sure you're following us there if you want up-to-the-minute updates rather than waiting until we post the stories on our Facebook page at the end of the night. But like I said, an action-packed week, so make sure you get out. It's going to be a beautiful Friday night. Temperatures in the 60s, upper 60s. Best night of high school football we've probably had this season, so you'll want to be out supporting your team. But for now, that's going to do it from here at Briarwood High School.